Our story begins with a very special boy named Carlo Acutis. Imagine a little baby, born far away in a big city called London, in England. This was Carlo, who came into the world in 1991. Even though he was born in England, his family soon moved to a beautiful country called Italy, to a busy city named Milan. This is where Carlo truly grew up, surrounded by the sights and sounds of Italian life. From a very young age, Carlo was a ray of sunshine. He had a bright smile and a kind heart that made everyone around him feel happy. He loved playing games, just like any other child, and he especially loved spending time with his family. His mum and dad were very important to him, and he cherished every moment he spent with them. Family dinners were often filled with laughter, and Carlo was always eager to share stories about his day. But Carlo's love didn't stop with his family. He had many friends, and he was always a good friend back to them. Whether it was sharing his toys, helping someone with their homework, or just being a good listener, Carlo was known for his thoughtful ways. He wasn't the kind of boy who wanted all the attention. Instead, he made sure everyone felt included and important. His classmates remember him as someone who was always ready to lend a hand, or offer a comforting word. He was curious about the world around him, always asking questions and wanting to learn new things. He loved animals, and he would often stop to watch birds or play with neighborhood dogs. Nature fascinated him, and he enjoyed being outdoors, exploring parks and green spaces in Milan. Even as a small boy, Carlo had a gentle spirit, and a deep sense of wonder about everything he saw. He was just a happy, ordinary boy in many ways. But there was also something extraordinary bubbling just beneath the surface, a special light that would soon shine very brightly for the whole world to see. This happy boy, full of life and love for those around him, was just at the beginning of a remarkable journey. While Carlo was a joyful and loving boy in all his everyday activities, there was something else that made him truly unique, even at a very young age. This special something was his deep and profound love for God. It wasn't just a simple belief. It was a burning fire in his heart that shone brighter than anything else. Even before he was old enough for his first communion, Carlo showed an amazing interest in his faith. Most children his age might be more interested in toys or cartoons, but Carlo was drawn to the quiet peace of the church. He loved going to Mass, listening to the readings, and being present during the prayers. It wasn't something his parents forced him to do. It was something he truly wanted, with all his heart. He would often ask his parents questions about God, about Jesus, and about the saints. His curiosity about spiritual things was endless. He wanted to understand everything, and he absorbed every lesson like a sponge. This wasn't typical for a child his age, and his parents were sometimes surprised by his deep understanding and his heartfelt devotion. Carlo made it a habit to go to church every single day, not just on Sundays but every day of the week. He would find a quiet moment to sit and pray, talking to God as if he were his closest friend. For Carlo, prayer wasn't a chore, it was a conversation, a way to connect with the one he loved most. He didn't need fancy words. His prayers came straight from his heart, simple and sincere. He understood, in a way that many adults struggle with, that God was real and present in his life. This special love for God guided everything he did. It made him even kinder, even more patient, and even more eager to help others. His faith wasn't just something he kept to himself, it was something that flowed out of him, touching everyone he met. This early, profound connection with God was the foundation upon which the rest of Carlo's remarkable life would be built, setting him on a path that would inspire countless people around the world. Because of his extraordinary love for God, and his deep understanding of faith, Carlo was allowed to do something very special when he was just 7 years old. This was earlier than most children, but everyone could see that Carlo was ready. On a beautiful day, filled with joy and excitement, Carlo made his first Holy Communion. This was an incredibly important moment for him. A day he had looked forward to with all his heart. Imagine Carlo, dressed in his special clothes, walking up to the altar to receive Jesus in the Eucharist for the very first time. For him, it wasn't just a ceremony, it was a true meeting with his best friend Jesus. He understood that the small piece of bread became the body of Christ, and this filled him with immense happiness and reverence. This day deepened his connection with God even more, making his daily prayers and church visits even more meaningful. He often spoke about how receiving communion felt like a highway to heaven, a direct path to God's love. But Carlo's spiritual journey didn't stop there. He continued to grow in his faith, learning more and more about what it meant to be a follower of Jesus. A few years later he received another very important sacrament: confirmation. If First Communion was like making a close friend, confirmation was like becoming a brave soldier for that friend, ready to stand up for what is right and share the good news with everyone. During confirmation, Carlo received the Holy Spirit in a special way, strengthening him to live out his faith with courage and conviction. It was a promise he made to God, and a promise God made to him, to always be there and guide him. He understood that this meant he was called to be a witness to Christ in the world, to share his love for God with everyone he met. He took this responsibility seriously, knowing that being a soldier for Christ meant living a life of kindness, service, and unwavering faith. These two sacraments, First Communion and Confirmation, were not just events in Carlo's life. They were powerful moments that shaped his path and prepared him for the incredible mission he would later undertake. They were like special boosts that helped his spiritual light shine even brighter. Carlo's special love for God, and his strength as a soldier for Christ, didn't just stay inside the church or in his prayers. It flowed outwards, into every part of his life, especially in how he treated others. More than anything, Carlo always wanted to help people, especially those who were struggling or forgotten. He truly saw Jesus in everyone he met, and this made him want to serve them with great love. Milan, like many big cities, had people who didn't have homes, who slept on the streets, and who often felt invisible. Carlo noticed them. He didn't just walk by. He stopped, he looked, and he felt a deep desire to make a difference. He didn't have a lot of money, but whatever allowance he received, he saved it carefully. He wasn't saving for new video games or toys, but for something much more important. With his saved money, Carlo would go to the store and buy warm sleeping bags. Imagine the surprise and gratitude on someone's face when a young boy hands them a brand new, warm sleeping bag on a cold night. It wasn't just the item itself, it was the kindness, the recognition, the feeling of being seen and cared for that truly touched these people's hearts. Carlo understood that sometimes, a simple act of generosity could bring immense comfort and hope. He didn't stop there. He would also prepare food packages from his home, maybe a sandwich, a piece of fruit or a warm drink, and bring them to the people living on the streets. He wouldn't just drop them off and leave. He would often take a moment to talk to them, to listen to their stories, and to offer a friendly smile. For Carlo, helping others wasn't a duty, it was a joyful expression of his faith. He believed that when you helped someone in need, you were truly helping Jesus himself. This incredible compassion and generosity, especially from such a young boy, truly set Carlo apart and showed the world what it meant to live a life full of God's love. Carlo's big heart and his desire to help people weren't limited to just giving sleeping bags or food. He lived in a time when computers were becoming very important, and he was naturally brilliant with them. While many kids his age used computers for games, Carlo saw them as a powerful tool for something much greater: sharing God's love. He knew that the internet could reach people all over the world, and he wanted to use that reach for good. He spent hours learning about coding and website design, not because someone made him, but because he felt a calling to use these new tools for his faith. He realized that many people didn't know much about the Catholic faith, or about the amazing miracles that have happened throughout history. Carlo wanted to change that. He started building websites, carefully gathering information about Eucharistic miracles, times when the bread and wine of communion seemed to show something truly special, like turning into real flesh and blood, or not spoiling for hundreds of years. Imagine a young boy, sitting at his computer, typing away with purpose, creating colorful pages filled with stories and facts about faith. He wasn't just copying information, he was making it interesting and easy to understand for everyone. He wanted people to be as excited about God as he was. His websites weren't boring, they were full of pictures and clear explanations, almost like a digital museum of faith. He would show stories from different countries and different times, all proving God's powerful presence. Because of his amazing ability to use modern technology to share his faith, Carlo Acutis earned a very special nickname: God's influencer. Just like today's influencers share things they love with many people online, Carlo used his computer skills to influence people's hearts towards God. He understood that the internet wasn't just for fun and games, it could be a place to spread truth, hope, and love to millions. His work online became a beacon, a bright light for many, showing them the beauty of the Catholic Church and the wonders of God's love, all thanks to a young boy with a keyboard and a truly divine purpose. While Carlo used computers to share his faith and helped those in need with his generous spirit, At the very center of his spiritual life was something even more profound: his immense love for the Eucharist. For Carlo, the Eucharist, which is also called Holy Communion, wasn't just a symbol or a tradition. It was the real presence of Jesus Christ. He believed it was the most important and sacred part of every Mass. He understood that when the priest blessed the bread and wine, they truly became the body and blood of Jesus. This belief filled him with such awe and joy that it changed the way he experienced Mass. Every time he went to church, he looked forward to that special moment when he could receive Jesus. For Carlo, it was like receiving a powerful gift, a direct connection to God himself. Carlo often spoke about the Eucharist with great passion and a simple yet profound understanding. He called it his highway to heaven. Imagine a super-fast road that takes you straight to where you want to go. For Carlo, receiving Holy Communion was exactly like that, a direct and sure way to grow closer to God and to prepare for eternal life with Him in heaven. He wanted everyone to understand this amazing gift. He encouraged his friends and family to go to Mass often, and to receive communion with an open heart. He believed that if people truly understood what the Eucharist was, they would flock to church, just like people rush to a concert or a big event. He would explain that Jesus truly waits for us in the Eucharist, eager to fill us with His love and grace. This deep devotion to the Eucharist was not just a private feeling for Carlo. It was the fuel for all his good works. It was what gave him the strength to help the homeless, the inspiration to create his websites, and the joy to live his life fully for God. His love for the Eucharist was a shining example of how faith can transform an ordinary life into an extraordinary one, making every day an opportunity to meet Jesus and travel a little further on that highway to heaven. Quote, Carlo's life was full of joy, faith, and helping others, a beautiful song of love for God and neighbor. But then, a very sad and challenging note entered his song. When Carlo was just 15 years old, a time when most teenagers are busy with school, friends, and dreams for the future, he started to feel unwell. At first, it might have seemed like a simple cold or a bit of tiredness, but it quickly became clear that something much more serious was happening. His family took him to the doctors, and after many tests, they received some very difficult news. Carlo had a very serious illness, a kind of blood cancer called leukemia. This was a shocking and heartbreaking diagnosis for everyone who loved him. Leukemia is a disease that affects the blood and bone marrow, making people very sick and weak. Suddenly, Carlo's vibrant life, filled with computer projects, church visits, and acts of charity, was overshadowed by hospital visits, treatments, and a lot of pain. It was a very hard time for him and his family. Imagine being a teenager, full of energy and plans, and then finding yourself constantly tired, weak, and facing such a scary illness. Despite the fear and the physical suffering, Carlo faced his sickness with incredible courage and a strength that came from his deep faith. He didn't complain or get angry at God. Instead, he surprised everyone with his peaceful attitude and his unwavering trust. Even in the hospital bed, he tried to offer comfort to others around him, showing concern for the nurses and other patients. This terrible sickness was a huge trial, a very difficult test of his faith. But instead of shaking his belief, it seemed to make it even stronger. Carlo understood that even in suffering, God was with him. This period of intense illness was not the end of his story, but a new chapter where his faith would shine even brighter, showing the world how true devotion can endure even the darkest times. Even as his body grew weaker and the pain of his illness became very strong, Carlo's spirit remained incredibly powerful. He didn't just quietly endure his suffering, he chose to use it for a higher purpose. This is one of the most amazing parts of his story. He understood something very deep about faith, that even our hardest times can be offered to God as a gift. Imagine being very sick, feeling pain all over, and knowing that your life might be ending soon. Most people would focus on themselves, asking why me, or wishing for relief. But Carlo was different. With a heart full of love and sacrifice, he consciously offered his great suffering to God. He didn't offer it for himself, but for others. Specifically, he offered it for two very important intentions, for the Pope, and for the entire Catholic Church. He truly loved the Pope, who is the leader of the Catholic Church, and he loved the Church itself, which he saw as the family of God here on earth. Carlo wanted to help them, to make them stronger and to bring more people closer to God. He believed that his pain, united with Jesus, suffering on the cross, could have a powerful effect. It was like giving a very precious gift to God, asking him to use it to bless the Pope and all the faithful around the world. His parents and the nurses were deeply moved by his selfless attitude. They saw a young boy, facing such a terrible disease, yet thinking only of others, of the spiritual good of the world. He would say things like, "I offer all the suffering I will have for the Lord, for the Pope, and for the Church." These weren't just words, they were a true expression of his heart, filled with immense charity, and an understanding of spiritual sacrifice that was far beyond his years. This act of offering his suffering showed how truly holy Carlo was. It proved that his faith was not just something he talked about, but something he lived with every breath, even in his final, most difficult days. He transformed his pain into a powerful prayer, a silent but strong act of love that would continue to inspire long after his passing. The powerful prayer of Carlo's suffering, offered for the Pope and the Church, marked his final days on earth. Sadly, despite the doctors' best efforts and the prayers of many, Carlo's illness became too strong. On October 12, 2006, at the tender age of 15, Carlo Acutis passed away. It was a moment of profound sadness for his family, his friends, and all who had been touched by his vibrant spirit. Imagine the quiet sorrow that fell over Milan as the news spread. A young life, so full of promise and goodness, had ended too soon. Many tears were shed, not just by those who knew him well, but by the homeless people he had helped, the priests he had assisted, and the countless others who had witnessed his joyful faith. His funeral was attended by many, a testament to how deeply he had impacted the lives around him. But even amidst the sorrow, something else was present: inspiration. People didn't just feel sad, they also felt deeply inspired by Carlo's unwavering faith, his kindness, and his incredible courage in the face of suffering. They remembered his bright smile, his dedication to God, and his selfless acts of charity. His life, though short, had been lived with such purpose and love that it left a lasting mark on everyone. His legacy, the lasting impact he left behind, began to grow immediately. People talked about God's influencer, and how he used his computer skills for good. They remembered his deep love for the Eucharist, and his desire to help the poor. Carlo had shown that even a young person living in the modern world could live a truly holy life, and make a big difference. His story was a powerful reminder that holiness isn't just for old people, or for those in monasteries. It's for everyone, everywhere, every day. His death was not an end, but a new beginning for his mission to inspire the world. Even after Carlo's passing, his spirit of love and his connection to God continued to work in amazing ways. People began to pray to Carlo, asking for his help and prayers to God. And then, something truly extraordinary started to happen: miracles. These were not just lucky coincidences, but events that couldn't be explained by science or medicine, leading many to believe they were direct answers to prayers through Carlo. One of the most famous and important miracles happened far away in Brazil. There was a young boy there who was suffering from a very serious sickness. He had a problem with his pancreas, an organ in his body, that made him very ill and unable to eat properly. The doctors said it was a very bad condition, and his family was very worried and sad. The boy's family and many others prayed very hard for him. They knew about Carlo Acutis, God's influencer, and they asked Carlo to pray for the sick boy in heaven. They believed that because Carlo had loved God so much, and had lived such a holy life, God would listen to his prayers. During a special church service where a piece of Carlo's clothing was present, the sick boy touched it and prayed, and then, something amazing happened. The boy, who had been so sick, suddenly started to get better. His body began to heal in a way that surprised all the doctors. He was able to eat again, and all the problems with his pancreas disappeared. It was a complete healing, a true miracle. The doctors couldn't explain it, saying it was beyond what medicine could do. This incredible healing was carefully looked at by the church. They gathered all the facts, talked to the doctors, and made sure there was no other explanation. After much study, the church officially said that this healing was a miracle, and that it happened because of Carlo Acutis's prayers to God. This miracle was a clear sign that Carlo was truly special in God's eyes, and it brought even more attention to his inspiring life, and his powerful intercession from heaven. It showed that even after death, Carlo continued his mission of bringing God's love and healing to the world. The miraculous healing of the boy in Brazil, along with Carlo's exceptionally holy life, caught the official attention of the Catholic Church. When the Church sees someone who has lived with such great love for God and neighbor, and when miracles happen after that person's death through their prayers, it begins a very special process. This process is called canonization, which means officially recognizing someone as a saint. For Carlo, this process began with many steps. First, the church looked very closely at his entire life. They talked to his family, his friends, his teachers, and anyone who knew him. They read his writings and looked at his computer work. They wanted to make sure that he truly lived a life of heroic virtue, always striving to do God's will, and showing great love for others. After much study, the church declared Carlo venerable, meaning he lived a life of heroic virtue. But to become a saint, another step is usually needed. A miracle must be approved. This is where the healing of the boy in Brazil became so important. The church investigated this miracle very carefully, with doctors and experts, to make sure it was truly unexplainable by science. Once it was confirmed, it was a huge step forward. Because of this approved miracle, on October 10, 2020, Carlo Acutis was beatified. This is a very joyful day in the church, and it means he is now officially called Blessed Carlo Acutis. Being blessed is the step right before becoming a full saint. It means the church recognizes that he is in heaven, and can be prayed to by people around the world. Imagine the joy his parents felt, and all the people who loved Carlo, to see him recognized in such a special way. It wasn't just about giving him a title, it was about the church telling the world that Carlo's life was a shining example of how to love God, and live out the faith in a modern way. This recognition means that more and more people will learn about him, be inspired by his story, and ask for his prayers, continuing his mission as God's influencer for generations to come. The journey to sainthood is a beautiful testament to God's work through his faithful servants. Carlo's journey from a happy boy in Milan to being called blessed by the church shows us something truly important for everyone today. His life is a wonderful example, a bright light, showing us that even young people, like you, can do great things for God and for others. You don't have to be old or famous to make a big difference in the world. One of the most exciting parts of Carlo's story is how he used technology. In a world where phones, computers, and the internet are everywhere, Carlo shows us how to use these tools for good, not just for games or entertainment. He saw the internet as a gift, a way to share the most important message of all, God's love. He teaches us that we can be God's influencers too, by using our screens to spread kindness, truth, and faith. We can share positive messages, help people learn about good things, and connect with others in ways that build up, rather than tear down. But Carlo's example isn't just about technology. It's about his whole heart. He teaches us to love God above all else, just like he did with his daily prayers and his deep love for the Eucharist. He reminds us to be kind to everyone, especially those who are poor or lonely, just as he helped the homeless in Milan. He shows us that even when life is hard, we can face challenges with courage, and offer our struggles to God, trusting in his plan. Carlo's life encourages us to find Jesus in every moment, in every person, and in every act of love. He was an ordinary boy who chose to live an extraordinary life, simply by putting God first. So as you go about your day, think of Blessed Carlo Acutis, God's influencer. Remember that you too have special gifts and talents, and you can use them to shine God's light in the world, making it a better, more loving place for everyone. His story is a powerful reminder that holiness is for everyone, no matter their age, and that every act of love, big or small, truly matters to God.